So before we jump into things today, this deep dive is actually brought to you by AI Opportune.
Which is honestly just a fantastic resource.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you are, trying to navigate the absolute whirlwind of artificial intelligence right now, AI Opportune is basically your essential hub for actionable insights.
Right. They cover cutting-edge trends and real-world AI applications. It is the best way to separate the signal from the noise.
Exactly. So absolutely make sure you subscribe to AI Opportune today. Just, keep your competitive edge. But let's get into today's mission.
Let's do it.
Because if you have applied for a job in, say, the last 10 years, you know the exact feeling we're talking about today.
Yeah.
You drop your meticulously crafted resume into this cosmic black hole.
Right. You hit submit and then nothing.
Yeah, just total silence. And you're left wondering if a human being ever even glanced at your application. But the crazy part is, on the other side of that black hole, it's not really much better.
No, it's a nightmare for the recruiters, too. I mean, you have hiring managers who are completely buried under just mountains of unformatted data.
Right. They're desperately trying to find the one candidate they actually need, but they can't.
Because it's a fundamentally broken architecture for both sides. It's built on these legacy databases that were, just never designed for the sheer volume of applications we see today.
Yeah, the friction is just immense. So today, our mission is to unpack a massive, quiet shift happening in how companies hire. We are moving away from those clunky, rule-based chatbots that just send you in circles.
Oh, I hate those.
Right, we all do. We're finally entering the era of what's called multi-agent AI. And whether you're a business leader trying to figure out how to scale your workforce or, just a professional wondering who or exactly what is reading your resume, this shift directly impacts you.
It really does. And to set the baseline for exactly where we are in this timeline, we need to look at a highly specific milestone from our sources.
Okay, lay it on us.
So on July 15th, 2026, a company called Eightfold rolled out a system they call Candidate Agent. And what makes this launch so significant is that it's not merely an upgrade to an existing chat interface.
It's not just a better version of the annoying pop-up window.
Exactly. It represents a completely new underlying architecture for talent acquisition. So today, we're going to explore how these systems actually work beneath the surface.
And we'll look at why high-volume recruiting is really the ultimate testing ground for this, plus how businesses are rolling it out.
Right. So to understand why a multi-agent system like Eightfold's July 2026 launch is such a structural leap forward, we kind of have to look at why old AI in HR failed so spectacularly.
Yeah, those early tools were rough. I like to think of the old AI recruiting tools like a solo worker frantically running around a crowded office.
That's a great way to picture.
Like imagine one isolated program trying to parse natural language from a candidate, query a database for shift times, read a resume, evaluate skills, and draft a personalized email all at the same time.
All in one single processing window. It's helpful in theory, but completely overwhelmed in practice.
Right. When you ask one monolithic AI model to handle every single task in a complex workflow, it inevitably drops the ball, hallucinates information, or just, crashes out of context.
And that structural flaw is exactly why the industry is pivoting. The technical shift here is moving from a single master model to an ecosystem of connected, automated workflows.
So breaking it into smaller pieces.
Exactly. In the past, companies tried to feed the entire hiring funnel into one giant large language model. But, large language models are basically probabilistic text generators.
They aren't really designed to execute step-by-step business logic reliably.
Right, they get confused. When you ask them to juggle disparate tasks, their context window just gets polluted. So multi-agent AI changes the dynamic by isolating responsibilities.
So if the old way was a frantic solo worker, the new architecture is more like a highly synchronized Olympic relay team.
I love that analogy. Yes, you have specialized narrow focus agents. So like one agent only handles scheduling, another agent only extracts specific technical skills from a text block.
And they execute their one single function and then smoothly pass the digital baton to the next agent in the sequence.
Precisely. Which brings us right back to the mechanics of that Eightfold candidate agent system. It isn't just a widget sitting on a career page waiting for you to click a chat bubble.
No, the sources point out it operates across SMS, WhatsApp, the web, and voice platforms.
And it dynamically translates across more than 24 languages.
Oh, wow, that's massive. So it answers practical questions, suggests open roles based on a semantic understanding of your background, and then it syncs that data directly into the company's applicant tracking system, or ATS.
But the handoff, that baton pass we talked about, is where the operational leverage really emerges.
Walk us through that flow.
So the initial candidate agent handles the engagement and data capture. Once the baseline application is complete, it triggers a secondary agent, an AI interviewer.
Okay, so a totally different agent takes over.
Right. And this AI interviewer is engineered specifically to conduct structured first-round pre-screening interviews. It gathers the candidates' responses, analyzes them strictly against the job requirements, and generates a structured insight report.
And then what?
Then it hands the baton to a recruiter review stage where a human finally makes the hiring decision.
Okay, wait. I need to challenge that last point for a second, because this is where the theory and the reality often collide for people.
Fair enough. Go ahead.
You say the human makes the final hiring decision. But if a multi-agent AI system processes 1,000 applications, conducts all the first-round interviews, and then only passes along a highly filtered package of, like, the top 10 candidates to the human.
I see where you're going.
Right. Like the AI is de facto making the decision. By filtering out the other 990 people before a human ever even sees their names, we are effectively handing over the keys to the kingdom. How is that not the AI deciding who gets the job?
That is the most common critique of algorithmic screening, absolutely. But it really requires us to separate two concepts: selection versus qualification.
Okay, break that down for me.
The AI is not making a qualitative judgment on who the best holistic hire is. It's executing a ruthless, high-speed sorting mechanism based purely on binary constraints.
So, just checking the hard requirements.
Exactly. It's confirming prerequisites. Like, does this person have a valid commercial driver's license? Are they available for the night shift? Do they have 3 years of verified logistics experience?
So it's removing the administrative heavy lifting of finding the baseline qualified pool.
Yes. The human recruiter still retains the final judgment on who among that actually qualified pool receives the offer, but they're doing it with a clean package of validated info instead of spending 40 hours manually verifying driver's licenses just to find 10 viable candidates.
Okay, yeah, that makes the distinction much clearer. It's an administrative filter, not a final adjudicator.
Precisely.
And because these multi-agent systems are fundamentally designed for scale and repetition, they aren't really targeting boutique CEO searches or highly specialized creative roles, right?
No, definitely not. The economic engine driving this whole development is high-volume hiring.
That's the real sweet spot here.
Absolutely. We are looking at sectors like retail, hospitality, logistics, healthcare, customer service.
Right. Imagine a mid-sized logistics company needing to hire 500 frontline warehouse workers heading into the holiday peak season.
In those specific labor markets, turnaround time is literally your primary competitive advantage.
Because if an hourly worker is looking for a warehouse job, they are absolutely not going to sit around for 2 weeks waiting for a recruiter to manually process an application.
No, if you take too long to reply, that candidate just walks down the street and accepts a job at a competitor's facility that exact same afternoon.
Plus, think about the repetitive burden on the actual human recruiters. HR professionals in these high-volume spaces spend half their working lives answering the exact same logistical questions.
Over and over again, what are the shift hours? Do I need steel-toed boots? How soon can I start?
Yeah, it's a massive drain on human capital to have a salaried employee basically functioning as a human FAQ page.
Which is exactly why industry analyst Josh Burson points out that high-volume recruiting is serving as the primary launchpad for this agentic architecture.
So Eightfold is a big player, but there are others, right?
Oh, for sure. Platforms like Paradox, Maki, and Radency are pushing the same multi-agent approach across the market, specifically to target that volume problem. The goal is to entirely eliminate the friction between a candidate's initial interest and their first scheduled interview.
Well, the sources actually provide some pretty crazy concrete data on this. There's a case study involving Paradox and the convenience store chain 7-Eleven.
Yes, the 7-Eleven data is wild.
It really is. By implementing conversational hiring automation to handle that initial screening and scheduling phase, 7-Eleven reduced their average time to hire from 10 days down to under 5 days.
Cutting the hiring cycle in half is a massive operational win right off the bat.
But the secondary metric is the one that actually, shifts the entire business model. By automating the repetitive screening, they saved their store managers Roughly 40,000 hours every single week.
40,000 hours weekly.
Across the franchise network. That is just an unbelievable amount of time.
Right. And when you look at a scale of 40,000 hours saved weekly, you're no longer talking about a simple HR efficiency tool. You're talking about a fundamental shift in the unit economics of a massive retail operation.
Because those store managers aren't playing calendar Tetris anymore.
Exactly. If a store manager isn't spending 10 hours a week in a back office calling references and scheduling interviews, they're out on the floor. They are driving sales, managing inventory, actually training the existing staff.
The multi-agent system effectively reallocates all that management time back to revenue-generating activities.
Yes, it's a huge win.
But saving a massive franchise operation all those hours is obvious, but you have to look at the interface capturing that data too.
What do you mean?
Well, if the workflow feels like one of those awful robotic telephone customer service menus where you just keep matching the zero key trying to reach a human, candidates will just abandon the process.
Oh yeah, the entire architecture collapses if the person applying feels alienated by a cold, mechanical filter.
Right. So does this actually feel like a terrible robot interaction for the candidate?
It's a logical concern, but the reality is that multi-agent systems are actually being deployed to fix terrible existing human-designed experiences.
Okay, that's fair. The old way wasn't exactly a joyride.
Think about the legacy architecture. Companies relied on incredibly rigid 15-page web forms, and the only reason those forms existed was because legacy databases required perfectly structured, tabular data.
They basically forced the candidate to do all the manual labor of translating their complex human experience into tiny little drop-down menus.
Precisely, which is why drop-off rates on mobile devices are historically astronomical.
Right. Nobody wants to fill out a 15-page form with specialized character passwords while they're riding the bus to their current job.
They just abandon the process. And then recruiters burn out trying to manually reconcile the incomplete data that does come through, and manual bottlenecks delay offers. It's a mess.
Plus, human screeners are wildly inconsistent. An entry-level candidate's fate often depends on how much sleep the recruiter got the night before.
Exactly. So multi-agent systems bypass that rigid web form entirely by utilizing large language models to extract structured data from unstructured, natural conversation.
Let's walk through a concrete scenario to make this real for you listening. So imagine you're walking past a distribution center for a mid-sized logistics company, and they have a hiring banner facing the street with a big QR code.
Classic high-volume recruitment tactic.
Right. Under the old legacy system, scanning that QR code opens up a tiny, impossible-to-read web portal demanding you create an account before you can even see the shift requirements.
But under a multi-agent architecture, the experience is entirely decoupled from that database interface.
So what happens when they scan it now?
The moment the candidate scans that QR code, they are dropped directly into a native text thread on their phone, and the engagement agent takes over.
So it just texts them like a normal person?
Yep. It sends a conversational text immediately, answering questions about shift availability and gathering basic details. The candidate doesn't fill out a form, they just text back, I'm looking for the night shift and I have forklift experience.
And then the LLM reads that natural text, extracts the variables night shift and forklift, and structures them for the database in the background.
Exactly. But it's the coordination of the secondary agents where the friction truly vanishes.
Right, because multiple agents are working at the same time.
As that text conversation is happening, the verification agent and scheduling agent seamlessly step in. The text agent pings the verification agent, which uses an API to instantly query a state database to verify that forklift certification in real time.
Okay, wow. So it's checking credentials instantly.
And simultaneously, the scheduling agent acts like an air traffic controller. It checks the warehouse manager's calendar, cross-references it with the candidate's stated availability, finds an open 15-minute slot for the next morning, and offers it directly in the text thread.
That is wild. The candidate hasn't visited a single website. They are just texting, and within 2 minutes, they are verified and scheduled.
Then the evaluation phase initiates.
Okay, how does that work via text?
Instead of a generic resume screen, the system triggers a brief, structured audio assessment delivered right to the phone. An evaluation agent transcribes the candidate's spoken responses, but it doesn't just do a simple keyword match.
It's smarter than that.
Much smarter. It uses a vector database to map the candidate's spoken experience geometrically against the job requirements, really understanding the semantic meaning behind their answers and highlighting key competencies.
So if a candidate says, I oversaw a crew loading outbound freight. The vector database understands that is semantically identical to the job requirement asking for supervisory logistics experience, even if they didn't use those exact keywords.
Exactly. It understands the context. And the final step is the handoff. The warehouse manager gets an alert.
Do they just get a massive transcript of the text thread?
No, they don't see a raw transcript, they don't see a messy resume, and they don't parse through the texts. They receive a concise, highly structured summary generated by the orchestration layer.
Ah, so it just says, here's why this candidate is a verified fit for the night shift.
Exactly. And the manager can approve the final in-person meeting with a single click.
I feel like the major takeaway here is the inversion of the process.
Yeah.
Instead of forcing the candidate to do the work of structuring their data for a legacy database, the multi-agent AI does all that translation invisibly.
The candidate feels heard, they get an interview scheduled in 3 minutes, and the company secures the talent before their competitor has even opened their email app.
It completely flips the paradigm. It uses intelligent orchestration to handle massive applicant volumes without sacrificing the candidate experience.
Now, hearing these operational results, business leaders are naturally going to want to deploy this immediately.
Oh, for sure. They hear 40,000 hours saved and they're sold.
Right. However, implementing multi-agent AI is not simply a matter of purchasing another standalone SaaS product. You cannot just download a multi-agent app, flip a switch, and expect your hiring friction to vanish.
It's not plug and play.
Not at all. It requires a fundamental architectural rebuild. Building an agentic hiring system is about deeply connecting your proprietary data, your chosen models, and your operational workflows.
So let's break down that implementation stack, because this is where companies are going to either succeed or waste millions of dollars.
Definitely. It always starts with identifying a specific business bottleneck.
Right. You have to know what failure point you're actually trying to solve first, whether that's an abysmal mobile drop-off rate or recruiters spending 70% of their time scheduling.
Once you identify the bottleneck, the foundation is the data layer. This encompasses your applicant tracking system, your approved job descriptions, and your internal policy documents.
And that layer feeds into the AI models.
Right. We talked about large language models for natural conversation and vector databases for semantic matching. These use retrieval augmented generation, or AIR, to ensure the AI is only pulling answers from your approved company documents.
So it's not hallucinating answers from random corners of the open internet.
Exactly. And sitting above the models is the orchestration layer, which is the logic engine where those specialized agents live, communicate with each other, and pass the baton.
Okay, then you have the human review layer, and finally continuous feedback, where the models are tuned based on the eventual hiring outcomes.
That's the full stack, yes.
But looking at that architecture, the data layer seems like an obvious vulnerability. Like, here's where it gets really interesting. What if a company's internal data is just a total mess?
That is the multi-million-dollar question.
Because if their job descriptions are vague, copy-pasted from a decade ago, or their internal policies contradict each other across multiple PDF files, it sounds like your AI agents are just going to confidently automate that mess at lightning speed.
They absolutely will. The old adage of garbage in, garbage out is magnified exponentially in a multi-agent system.
If you feed the vector database vague targets, it's just going to map candidates to vague outcomes.
Right. If your underlying data is fragmented, your AI will serve up fragmented, confusing interactions to the candidate. That is why a highly methodical, phased rollout strategy is so critical.
You can't just try to boil the ocean and automate the entire HR department at once.
Never. The most successful implementations start by isolating a single bottleneck in one specific high-volume role, like a warehouse associate or a retail cashier, before they ever touch complex positions.
Yeah, you definitely don't test your brand new multi-agent architecture on the search for your senior VP of finance.
You absolutely do not. The second step is rigorous data sanitization. Before connecting any agents, the company has to standardize the job descriptions, clarify the policy docs, and build crystal clear interview guides.
So the models have accurate ground truth data to pull from.
Exactly.
But what happens when the AI encounters a scenario it isn't trained for? Because candidates will inevitably ask weird questions that fall outside the parameters of those documents.
And that requires step 3, defining strict guardrails and escalation rules.
Setting boundaries.
Right. The orchestration layer must be programmed with clear boundaries outlining what questions an agent is legally and operationally allowed to answer. And more importantly, It has to know precisely when to trigger a graceful escalation.
Ah, so seamlessly transitioning the text thread to a human.
Exactly, with a message like, that is a great question about our specific benefits package. Let me connect you with a specialist to answer that.
Which naturally leads to the regulatory reality of implementing all this. You're dealing with highly sensitive candidate data, and the landscape of labor laws regarding automated employment tools is shifting constantly.
So step 4 is establishing absolute priority over data governance and compliance. Companies have to set up rigorous audit controls to ensure the automated screening criteria perfectly align with evolving local and federal labor laws.
So you have to monitor how data is stored, who has access to the transcripts, and how the models are weighting specific qualifications.
It is an ongoing operational commitment. You cannot simply set up an AI hiring system and walk away.
And finally, the deployment phase requires retraining your actual human team, sir.
Yes, you are shifting recruiters away from data entry, basic vetting, and calendar management. You have to empower them to utilize the time saved to actually build relationships, negotiate complex offers, and close top talent.
And leaders have to meticulously track the completion rates, the reduction in time to fill, and those crucial manager hours saved, really proving the unit economics before they expand the architecture anywhere else.
Exactly. When you synthesize all of these technological and operational threads, the core lesson for anyone analyzing the future of work is this: hiring workflows are becoming fundamentally programmable.
Programmable hiring. That really does fundamentally redefine the function of a recruiting department.
It is the new reality of talent acquisition. Early adopters who understand how to build and orchestrate these multi-agent architectures are going to secure a massive competitive advantage.
Because they'll capture candidate interest instantly at the point of intent.
Right, they'll drastically lower their cost per hire and, most importantly, free up their human recruiters to focus on high-value human relationships instead of administrative drudgery.
It's a total game changer. For business leaders, the starting line is pretty clear. Identify your worst high-volume hiring bottleneck today, sanitize your underlying data, automate it carefully with a single-agent workflow, and expand only as you prove the operational value.
That's the playbook.
So, what does this all mean for you, the listener? We spent this whole deep dive exploring how major corporations are utilizing this technology to streamline their side of the equation. But let's look at the other side of the chessboard for a second.
Oh, this is fascinating to think about.
Right. If companies are now using programmable multi-agent AI to instantly screen resumes, evaluate semantic skills, and conduct preliminary conversational interviews, how long is it until job seekers start deploying their own personal AI agents?
It's definitely coming.
Imagine a candidate programming an agent to scour the internet for open roles, autofill applications, negotiate baseline salary requirements, and complete these conversational text interviews completely on their behalf.
It sounds like sci-fi, but the tech is basically already here.
Are we heading toward a near future where a company's multi-agent AI is quite literally just interviewing a candidate's personal AI agent, rapidly exchanging data in the background while the actual humans are off doing something else entirely?
It really makes you rethink who is actually running the relay race.
Exactly. We started by talking about that overwhelmed solo worker dropping resumes into a black hole and contrasting it with a highly synchronized team of AI agents. But if the labor market becomes a battle of algorithmic agents, we might all need our own programmable relay teams very soon just to keep up.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of modern hiring. Keep questioning the systems around you, keep exploring the mechanisms driving our digital world, and we will catch you next time.